I get asked all the time until today why I left UCT, Africa's #1 university.
Not anymore. I mean,
And what I ultimately focused on is bettering myself
Right.
and trying to like reach the optimal level. The fact that being a Black woman
Right.
means that I have an opportunity to be a trailblazer and to like enter space.
Welcome, everybody. This is AlphaDelta, a podcast where we have conversations with people operating at a higher level than most, with the hopes that it motivates and inspires people to become the best version of themselves. So today, I'm joined by Melissa. Melissa is someone who I've known just through similar social circles, and I've been really impressed by just the things she's done and just her journey and whatnot. But Melissa, for those who don't know who you are, could you just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do, and where do you go to school?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Melissa. I am a tech entrepreneur, a lover of life and adventure and travel. I originally from Kenya, but I grew up in South Africa.
Interesting.
Yeah, I went to school, same school in South Africa from like first grade to 12th grade. And then I went to the University of Cape Town, and then I transferred to the African Leadership University. And then I recently finished my master's at Tsinghua University via the Schwarzman Scholars Program.
Nice, very cool. All right, so my first question for you is, what are you passionate about and why?
I'm passionate about many things.
Okay.
But if I had to pick one, I would say I'm passionate about giving artists a platform to showcase their art and to try to monetize it.
Interesting. So it's more about just giving back to artists, sort of trying to empower them to just like, find their own ways to sort of make a living from what they do and their craft and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. All right. So, taking a step back, I want you to talk a bit about your childhood. Just give us a general picture of what that was like. What was it growing up? What did you spend your time doing? What was high school like for you? Just give us just that overall experience.
Okay. So I think the first part of my childhood was a lot of fun.
Okay.
There's a really large Kenyan community in South Africa.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah,
true.
they were like,
yeah.
We had a lot of family friends with a lot of kids around my age, and I have an older brother as well.
Yeah.
So we just, my parents used to have a lot of parties,
Yeah,
used to like
yeah.
do a lot of things with other
Right,
kids, and so it was just generally like, it was generally just a good time.
Okay, that's awesome.
As for like high school and maybe like my more teenage years, I think that's when I started to realize that I went to school with a lot of very wealthy children.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
quickly realized that there were many things that they had or that they could do that I couldn't do.
Right.
And so I think that really started to shape my future aspirations.
Right.
I remember being in ninth grade, and there was this geography tour that was like all across Europe, 5 different countries,
Yeah,
something like
very
that.
good. Yeah, very exciting.
And I wanted to go so badly.
Yeah.
But I didn't even ask my parents because I just knew that I couldn't
Yeah,
go.
it wouldn't be possible. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just remember like feeling like the whole school was going on that tour, and I wasn't. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah.
So I think that now when I like look back and think about how in university I traveled so much, and I
Right.
traveled the most in Europe, so I think
Right.
it was kind of like having that 360 moment. And
Oh,
like,
okay. Yeah, it's like now many years now you have your moment, right? You get to really experience it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's like a lot more enjoyable that way, right? Now that you're older and you really understand just like, what it's like going abroad to Europe and places like that.
Yeah. And I think it's a different feeling when you afford yourself that opportunity rather than when your parents afford it.
Right. I mean, you've definitely talked about something really interesting. It's, realizing at a young age just the differences that you have within society. I don't know if you want to, but like, I'd really want to sort of dive deep into that a little bit.
Sure.
Just like, I want you to just, just like sort of reflect on that experience, and sort of think about like, how has that shaped who you are today?
Yeah. So I've always found it to be a bit complex because while people like love like let me say a rags to riches story, it's a bit more complicated when maybe you're not like objectively poor, but then within your context, your community, you're significantly like,
yeah,
in a lower class than like the people that you're with.
right,
So I think for me it was like it's always been a difficult balance between being fueled by the fact that I was constantly surrounded by people that had so much more money than me,
okay,
and it affected like social circles or friendships or things
right,
like that, or like it just made me like, even though I was still friends with the same people, it was like I couldn't go to all the concerts, all of this, all of
right,
that.
right,
So I think on one hand I channeled it as fuel to be like, well, if I want a certain lifestyle, then I need to do
work
what it
for it.
takes.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, I really tried to be grateful, because I didn't grow up poor, and I still had
Yeah,
a lot, and so I want to be grateful for everything that I did have.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. Um, I definitely resonate with that, what you're saying, in the sense of like, sort of you develop this like hunger to like,
Yeah.
pursue certain things and achieve certain things based on what you've been exposed to and what you've seen is possible, right?
Yeah.
Given a certain specific kind of environment. And it's like, now you fully understand for yourself, okay, what the standard is. It's like, this is what I want, right?
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
you don't want
Yeah.
to compromise on that. Absolutely. So I resonate with that a lot for sure. So my next question for you is, can you walk us through how you got to where you are today? Just tell us a bit about some of the things you've done. Just sort of just give us that whole entire journey.
Sure. So I would say my journey started after high school.
Okay.
I studied finance and accounting at the University of Cape Town.
Right.
And a few months in, I started applying to ALU.
Okay.
Somebody just told me about this new university that was
Yeah.
for Africa's next generation of leaders and
Right.
like aspiring
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
I know, I know, I know. So I went to ALA, so I know, I
Yeah.
know. You get sold on the mission, and then it's like, yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, oh wow, this is so cool. And it was like, it's not just about the education, it's about like
Right.
the leadership and the journey.
For sure.
And I think for me, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I need right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd always dreamt of going to UCT, but when I was
Okay.
actually there, it felt like I just felt a bit underwhelmed.
Right.
And so I was like, maybe this is an environment that will push me,
Right.
and change me.
Right.
So then I transferred after 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like I faced a lot of criticism when
That
I
was
made that
it.
decision,
Okay.
because all my UCT friends were like, this is the best university in Africa. Like,
Yeah.
why are you leaving?
Right.
ALU is a scam. Like, who has a
Right.
university in Mauritius? Like, this is like, you are being
Yeah.
paid, you're making a mistake, we don't
Wow.
support your decision,
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I did it anyway.
Okay.
And I think that because of like having to go against all that criticism from the moment I
Right.
got to ALU, I just had this mindset of, anything that I want to try to
Mm-hmm.
be, like anything that I aspire to be, I'm going to try to be it right now.
Right.
And so I would just be like, hey, what have I always wanted to do? I loved fashion growing up, and I was like, I want to host a fashion show. So then I hosted a
Okay.
fashion show at ALU,
Oh,
and I
interesting.
started the arts community, arts at
Interesting.
ALU, and we
Yeah.
hosted festivals and this and that.
Right. Right.
And it kind of just like it went from there. When it came to internship season,
Mm-hmm.
I told our career development manager, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, so
Yeah.
like where should I intern that will set me up? And they were like, you should do consulting. And I was like, I don't know what consulting is, but okay.
Okay.
And then I did my first internship at Bain Company, and
Cool.
it was really, really difficult.
I can imagine, right? Yeah.
And after I did that, I was like, wow, well, that was so difficult. But I was in my home country, so what can I do next year that will challenge me?
Right.
And I was like, okay, let me try go to a different continent, so that I'm challenged, like I'm in a new space.
Right. Right.
So the next year I did an internship in Japan, in Tokyo.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, with an NGO.
Yeah, that must have been some experience, right? Like,
honestly, it was like best time. I
right.
had such a good time.
Yeah, cool.
And then Bain had told me to come back the following year, but I still felt like I think I watched the movie The Intern,
Oh, okay,
the
yeah,
internship of
yeah,
like the Google internship, and I was like, this is so
yeah.
cool. I
Looks
want to
amazing.
intern
Yeah,
at
yeah,
Google.
yeah.
And then I was like, cool, let me try intern at Google. And like,
Okay.
I hustled my way. I didn't know anyone that worked there. I didn't know like anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up getting a chance to intern at Google.
Nice.
So I did that in the Dublin office.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back to Bain again, like directly after that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, the year after that, I was kind of all interned out.
Okay. You sort of just capped. It's like I'm
Yeah,
done. It's a wrap.
yeah. So I did
Okay.
some other like fun experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after that, I made the decision to go work at Google full time as a
Right.
product marketer. And then after about 1.5 years, I
Mm-hmm.
quit
Interesting.
to do my master's, which
Mm-hmm.
I just finished in July.
Congrats.
Thank
Congrats.
you.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been working on my startup and some of my other business ventures full time.
Mm. Awesome. I mean, that is quite a journey, absolutely, and very, very interesting things that you've been working on for sure. So my next question for you is, what has been one pivotal moment in your life that has shaped your career? And the follow-up question is, what has been your greatest achievement in your career so far?
So I think, as I alluded to, my decision to go to ALU and actually following up on
Mm-hmm.
that was a huge pivotal moment for me.
Right.
I get asked all the time until today why I left UCT, Africa's #1 university.
Not
Um,
anymore. I mean,
I mean, and I always just say that if I stayed at UCT, I would be a chartered accountant at Ernst & Young right now. And
mm,
not that there's anything wrong with that, but I
right.
think I would have been doing it out of not knowing like what other
Mm-hmm.
possibilities there are and
Right.
what other options I could pursue that align better with who I am and what I want to be.
Right. Makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. And it's just going, it's definitely relating to like the first conversation we're having just around, exposure, right? It's like such a fundamental thing because it's
Yeah.
only once you're like out of like your usual environment, that's when you get to realize what's actually possible out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting for sure. Um, I'm curious, like, what was okay, leaving Google, what is that like? I'm sure you must have got a lot of feedback
Yeah.
from it.
Yes, I surely did. I always knew I was going to leave Google from the time that I joined, from when I was even applying.
Okay.
I always saw my time at Google as a bridge, um, as a way to, gain experience, validate
Mm,
myself, gain some sort of respect in the industry.
right.
Um, so when I left Google, I think it helped a lot that I was leaving to do my master's.
Okay,
I think
right.
it would have been different if I was leaving to do my startup directly,
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
yeah, doing a master's is a lot more socially
Yeah,
acceptable.
right. For
So it
sure.
was just like, okay, cool, you go do your master's program and that China thing. Like at the time, I was
Yeah.
supposed to go to China, so it was like, yeah, everyone at Google is very kind about it and very
Okay.
nice about it. Um, yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. So it doesn't seem like there wasn't as much like friction in terms of like just the transition because it was, as you said, more socially acceptable
Yeah,
to
I mean,
leave.
there was a lot of friction, kind of externally, but I
Okay.
think I just blocked it out.
Right.
A lot of people being like, why would you leave a job at Google?
Yeah.
How does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like,
Yeah. Just the pressure from
yeah,
yeah.
it was like, but I haven't really paid much attention to those comments.
Yeah.
Usually like
Yeah.
aunties, family friends,
Of course, right.
people on Instagram. So it's
Yeah,
like, thank you
yeah.
for your feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Have a nice day. Mm. Okay, okay, cool. So my next question for you is, what is the biggest challenge you've ever had in your life, and how did you overcome it?
I've had many challenges.
Okay, naturally, right?
Naturally. I always like to take up a challenge.
Okay.
So again, naturally, it follows that the challenges that I take up get bigger as I
Mm-hmm.
move on in life.
Right,
So the
right.
biggest challenge that I have encountered is the one that I am going through right now,
Right.
which is transitioning from being used to existing and thriving within an already established organization, company, like in the corporate, just having to meet targets and,
Right.
get good performance reviews, and transitioning from that to trying to build my own company and
Right.
establish my own company culture. And do something that honestly it's been very difficult and challenging, but very rewarding.
Very rewarding. Yeah. No, I can imagine it because like you go from a space where there's a lot of certainty and now it's just complete uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm more or less in a similar boat, working at a startup and trying to also build my own business, like this media company and whatnot. And it's just like, I like it because every day is sort of exciting.
Yeah.
Every day is a new challenge. Every day is there's always something to do and always something to work on. You never get bogged down by like the mundane tasks of like day to day work, but it's definitely fun. That's the thing. It's definitely fun to some degree.
It's fun, and it's a huge change, like when I worked at Google and people would say, oh, what do you do? And I'd say, oh, I work in marketing. And they'd say, where? And I'd say, at Google. It would be like, oh, okay, like no further questions. That's that.
Yeah.
But when you tell somebody that like, oh, I'm working in my own company, I'm working on my startup, they have so many questions for you. Like all of a sudden, everybody is a business expert.
They all have advice, right? They all have the 2 cents to tell you.
Concerned about everything to do with your business.
That is so funny. Yeah.
So I've actually changed to telling people that I work at a tech company, and I just don't mention that I own the tech company because then I get many, like, much less questions.
Yeah. I'm like, I actually take the same, funny enough, I take the same approach. Like people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I work in tech and media. That's what I say.
Yeah.
And just keep it like that. And if they ask further, then the next phase, I'm like, oh, I help this company sort of build their commercial and product infrastructure. And then I run a media company, and then it stops there.
Yeah.
And then only then, like, for those really, really curious people, that's when they ask for. It's like, all right, okay, now I'll just tell you everything at this point, because like you've made the investment to actually ask this much. So, but most of the time, it's just like the first response, everyone's just like, oh, okay, cool, moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Yeah. All right. So my next question for you is, what advice would you give someone who's trying to do the same things as you?
Okay. I feel like I've been saying this for years.
Okay.
But like step number one, always figure out what you want. You can't achieve a target that you didn't set.
It's true.
And I strongly believe that you can have anything, but you can't have everything.
That's very true.
So figure out what you want. And then secondly, try to figure out and learn what you don't know and what you don't know you don't know.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
And thirdly, don't self-disqualify. Apply for that job, put yourself forward for that opportunity. You shoot that shot. Rather get told no than tell yourself no.
Yeah. No, I really resonate with the self-disqualifying thing a lot, because a lot of times I've found people always reject themselves before even just making the first attempt. And it's like, I mean, obviously, like I understand it because I used to be in that phase of my life as well. But over time, you realize it's like it's just a no, right?
Yeah.
It's just a no, right?
And it might be a yes.
And it might, exactly. It's a 50-50 chance, right? It's a 50-50 probability. So it's like, yeah, no. I mean, I honestly feel like everyone out there you should always go for whatever it is. Like, just ask. Like, just go for it. Ask. Like, because you just never know.
Yeah, exactly. Like I used to get so many, questions in DMs about different internships. Like, how did you get in? How did you get this internship?
Yeah.
How did you get this internship? And I just was like, I applied.
Yeah. Step one.
Did you apply?
Yeah. I was like, oh no, I saw the qualification.
Exactly.
I didn't feel like
exactly. And it's like, like we don't all start off with like crazy networks or insiders or this or this or this.
You just don't.
You work with what you have. And you try your best, and you'll be surprised things work that you never imagined would work. And
exactly. No, I agree. I mean, just think about just even my life and the things I've done. It's like it always just came down to just me just doing it, just asking for this interview, asking you, even though we don't really have like a strong relationship, just come on this podcast and everything. So it's like, it's just do it. It's like that's like the fundamental thing behind anything great is just starting, right? So all right. So my next question is, where are you heading to? What are you hoping to accomplish in the next couple of years?
Where am I heading to? That is a deep question. I think for me, I try not to tie myself down to very specific targets or very I don't like aspire for very, very specific opportunities like 10 years out or 15 years out.
Okay.
And the reason why is because when I look back, so many of the opportunities that I was lucky to get, I didn't even know existed like
Right.
1 year before or 2 years before. So as cliche or maybe like a general as it may sound,
Yeah.
like what I ultimately focused on is bettering myself
Right.
and trying to like reach the optimal level, of me. And in doing that, trying to make the biggest impact that I can.
Right.
And I just think that as much as it's something that's very cliche and very kind of like oversaid,
Right.
a lot of people don't do it, one of my favorite quotes says something like, we all have the same goals.
Okay.
So it's not about like what your goal is, it's about like
Right.
what are you doing every day to achieve it.
To achieve it, yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually probably the most important thing. It's like, I know there's this, I remember reading once, there's like an analogy about how, you have two basketball coaches, right? One coach has the goal of winning the championship at the end of the season, and the other coach has the goal of, or just focuses on making sure that the team performs the best every single day in training.
Right.
And like, the question that comes like, all right, who has the higher chance of winning this championship?
Right.
And it's like both of them do, right?
Yeah.
It's like you could just focus on the now and the actions of day to day without having a goal in mind,
Yeah.
but you'd still end up there
Yeah.
just from just the actions that you perform.
Yeah. And I think it's always a delicate balance, because sometimes if you say, okay, I want to have a net worth of $10 million, and
Yeah.
every day that you wake up and you don't have that net worth, you
Right.
can feel a bit unhappy. You can feel like you're not there yet, and you can almost feel like you're waiting to get to the destination
Exactly.
in order to like have a sense of happiness. So the way that I like to think about it is that yes, I would like to make a lot of money and have a big impact, but I try to ask myself like every day, like, okay, am I willing to do what it takes, and like what are the best things that I can do today to be 1% better than I was the previous day.
Yeah, I like that. I like that reflection. I think that's really, really important. It's like being able to understand what you're doing now and sort of like just take certain steps or actions towards improving from the previous day, right?
Yeah.
So the next set of questions I have for you are a bit more personal.
Okay.
And the first one I have for you is, do you practice self-improvement? And if you do, what do you do?
Yes, I do practice self-improvement, and I have been practicing it for a very long time.
That's awesome.
And what do I do? Vaguely, I would say I focus on learning every day. More specifically, what does that look like? For me, it looks like reading. I love audiobooks. It looks like reading. I read nonfiction.
Yeah.
I know people normally think that's very boring, but
oh wait, what?
Really
people actually think that's boring?
Yeah,
really?
like my cousins
I
judge
know.
me way too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I read nonfiction books, and I learned so much. I read books written by people that I look up to. I love podcasts.
Right.
I love like educational, YouTube videos and things like that.
Yeah.
I also, sometimes try to do courses. And then I think most importantly is that I ask for feedback. So right now, I lead a team. So I'm constantly trying to be a better manager. I'm constantly trying to see how I could better, enable the people that I work with to thrive.
Right.
And so asking them
for feedback,
directly, and creating a space where they feel like they can be honest has enabled me to see what some of my blind spots are and how I can be better.
That's cool. Those are great self-improvement practices, which, for everyone watching, like, please take a leaf out of her book. My next question for you is, what is one area of your life you feel you could improve on?
I would say creating content more consistently.
Okay.
I love
you and me both.
Yeah, I mean, I love making content. I've loved it for a while now, but it's just something I've never prioritize doing consistently.
Right, right, right. And it's like it's funny because like it's actually a lot of work.
It's so much
It's
work.
like influencers make it look easy, but it's a lot of work.
It's honestly so much work,
It's a
especially if you
lot
want
of
to
work.
keep getting better, if you want to make
Exactly, you want to
something that you
grow.
actually like, you know, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's like one thing I've especially realized with my own socials is like trying to find a balance between quality over quantity.
Yeah.
That's my daily struggle, like every single day. Because I'm always like, all right, is this a quality post that I know will get a lot of views, or am I just posting just because it
Yeah.
just seems cool to me, right? And
Yeah.
it's like trying to find a balance between things that I like,
Mm-hmm.
that are impactful and are high quality, such that it just builds the brand in a sense in the way I want
Yeah.
it to be built, right? So
Yeah, I hear you.
yeah, it's interesting for sure. All right, my next question for you is, what does being a woman mean to you?
What does being a woman mean to me? Um, Funnily enough, I think on a day-to-day basis, I don't like think of myself like I don't think, oh, I'm
Mm,
a woman, and so
right,
this and this
right.
and this.
Hmm.
But I think for me, being a woman means embracing duality. Um, it's very important to me that even as I chase the hustle and the
Right,
grind and like the
right.
startup life, that I don't try to be I don't try to do it in a manly way, or I don't try
Okay.
to be a man about it just
Yeah.
because majority of the people in that space are men.
Right.
I really
Hmm.
try to embrace my femininity,
Right.
embrace being a woman,
Right.
and show up like as my authentic self.
Hmm.
And so I am, aware of I am aware of the fact that I'm often in spaces that are predominantly men. I'm aware of
Hmm.
the fact that people may look at me or treat me differently because I'm a
Right.
woman.
Right.
But um, I don't ever let that affect the way that I conduct myself.
Right. Right. It's very interesting. It's like it doesn't really define you, essentially. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't define me, but at the same time, I think that um, I'm very cognizant of the fact that being a Black woman
Right.
means that I have an opportunity to be a trailblazer and to like
Hmm.
enter spaces and make way for people to enter spaces that Black women haven't been before.
Right.
So
Right.
for example, like I was the first Kenyan woman to do the Schwarzman program.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like, and when I was an intern at Google, there was 120 interns, and I was the only one from Africa.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's like, for me, it's like me doing those things, and like that's why I try to share about it.
Right.
It's so important for me for other people who look like me to see it and be like, hey, I can do that too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like that is literally just the ethos behind the podcast.
Hmm.
Literally what you just said. It's like, I'm trying to interview as many people that are of different backgrounds and
Yeah.
have them share their stories such that, someone sitting at home and watching and listening to this, they'll be like, oh, I really resonate with what this person is saying.
Yeah.
Let me try to sort of follow their path or try to do something similar that they're doing. Because again, going back to, I guess, the overall theme of this conversation is that it provides that exposure, right? It provides
Yeah.
that exposure
Yeah.
to people, right? Um, so my last question for you is, what does Alpha Delta mean to you?
What does AlphaDelta mean to me?
Yeah.
um, like the podcast or the name or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can pursue it however you want to. I mean, like, obviously, it's the name of this podcast,
yes.
obviously, and you have some context about what the podcast is.
Yeah.
So based off of that, like,
So I think about it as a platform for people to share their stories. And I think, as you alluded to, sharing stories is very powerful
right,
because when somebody sees an aspect of themselves in somebody else, it can give them the confidence to um, strive for something that they might not have ordinarily gone for.
right,
And so I think that representation is so important.
right,
And so, given the fact that, from what I've seen so far, your podcast has been, a lot of people of color, a
right.
lot of Africans, a good amount of women.
Yeah,
I think it's so important for those stories to be out there too, and those
absolutely.
narratives to be out there as well.
I agree, 100%. Cool. So we're pretty much coming towards the end of this conversation. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, lay them on me. Come on.
So, what does Alpha Delta mean to you, and
To
what
me,
do you want it to mean to others?
to others. Um, Very, very, very great question. So to me, it's okay. Oh, how can I tackle this question? So obviously, like I'll talk about just like the whole mission and vision behind it, right? It's just like being able to build a community of people who are just striving to become the best version of themselves. A community where like people are improving, whether it's physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, all those different areas. Um, so I'll actually explain the story as to how the name came about. So when I was like really, I first came up with the idea of like, oh, I should just like have conversations with people I know just to share their stories. And I was like, you know what, like these people are in like they're a set, right? They're a group of people, right? And like, how do I categorize them? And at the time, what came to mind was like how frats and sororities sort of work in the U.S. So the name Alpha sort of stemmed from like that, and then I thought about Delta. But Arinze gave me like the best understanding that I always use all the time when I talk about it, is that the way he understood Alpha Delta is that, you have Alpha, which is like first, striving to be number one. And then you have Delta, which is like change, right? So these are people who are constantly changing in order to be number one, right? Yeah. So I heard that, I was like, yeah, I'm going to use that. I'm going to credit you every single time, but that is the definition that I'm going with, 100%.
I love it.
But yeah, that's what it means to me. And sorry, what was your second question?
What do you want it to mean to others?
Yeah, I guess it's the same thing. I really want it to be a resource for a lot of people. I really want it to be, I think the fundamental thing is just inspiring to people and just motivating as well, that, they can do whatever they set their mind to as long as they work hard for it. And, through sharing the stories, it's just getting people exposed, right, to what's possible. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Awesome. So, final remarks. Where can people find you, and is there anything that you want to promote on this episode?
Nothing that I would like to promote.
Okay.
Where you can find me, number one place is definitely Instagram.
Okay.
If you'd like to hear from me every day, at Malichi Bliss. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, but I'm kind of scarce on those platforms.
Okay. And for everyone watching, I'm just going to put all the social links in the description so you can just scroll down and just be able to connect with her. So yeah, all right. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode. It's been such a pleasure.
Cool. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. For everyone watching, this is an episode of Alpha Delta, and really the purpose of this podcast is just to sort of motivate and inspire people to become the best version of themselves. I've been your host, Joe Kariuki, and I'm joined here by my guest, Melissa. And this is going to be a goodbye from us. Peace.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.